we had seen a lot of tourists come into carbon markets and climate tech industry. And we saw already some of the tourists leave, and the true missionaries are still here. In fact, I think that this is the moment for true action. When too many people come into a market because it's hot, because it's trendy, you get too much noise, you get a lot of fake action. But now with the waters more calm, we're going to see true action. We're going to see, the companies that care, the project developers that care, and the market players that care doing things right and building a strong foundation for a new wave of growth for carbon markets.
Carbonsations, today's carbon industry leaders.
Welcome to the Carbonsations podcast, where we speak to some of the leading figures in the emerging carbon industry. Today, we're joined by Diego Saez Gil, the CEO and founder of Pachama, the world's first AI-powered carbon credits platform dedicated to nature-based carbon removal. Diego, it's a pleasure to be kicking off 2025 with you as our first guest in the new year. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you may be familiar with the format already, in which case you'll know that we like to get a good feeling of our guest's background before diving headfirst into the business side of things. So with that in mind, Diego, I'd love it if you could please tell us a little bit more about what you used to do before Pachama and how you ended up in this space.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be the first guest of the year. And happy to share about my background. I am originally from the north of Argentina. So I actually grew up surrounded by the beautiful forest and nature of the north of Argentina. We have a forest called the Yunga. My grandparents had houses in the middle of the forest, and they, influenced in me a big love for trees and nature. So that's an important part of my background. And I'm also partially descendant of indigenous people of South America, the Inca people. So I have that connection to the land. Now, then I studied electromechanics and business, and I went to do my master's in Spain. And after my master's, I moved to the US and decided to become a tech entrepreneur. And I spent about 10 years helping build 2 different companies actually on the travel technology industry. So nothing to do with carbon or sustainability, but my other passion was travel. But building these companies, I learned a lot about the power of technology. I learned a lot about how to raise venture capital and how to build teams of engineers and product managers and marketeers and bring innovative tools to market. And that was very important in my education to get to Pachama. And then at some point, I started, getting very worried about climate change and about the loss of nature. It was actually on a trip to the Amazon rainforest that I did on a vacation that I took just before starting Pachama. And I was in the Amazon rainforest. I got to see the deforestation that is happening there. And I came back to California, really decided to do something about it. And I brought my lens of technology entrepreneurship to the problem. And I was aware of how much AI was advancing. This is, back in 2017 when I was doing my research for Pachama. I was seeing how deep learning and AI in general was advancing a lot. Satellites were advancing a lot, and I figured that by combining satellite data with AI and with other technologies that were advancing rapidly, such as LiDAR and drones, we could come up with a new way of measuring, monitoring, and reporting carbon on natural ecosystems. And that was kind of like the beginning of me jumping into this space.
Thank you. So moving on to some of your latest developments, you guys really finished off 2024 with a bang. There were some very exciting developments that I'm really eager to get into. First of these being the announcement from Symbiosis Coalition, formed by tech giants Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Salesforce on their first request for proposals process, which will be powered by Pachama's digital dMRV platform. What can you tell us about this partnership and who will benefit from it?
Yes. So to continue what I was saying on the founding of Pachama, for the last 6 years, we've been investing a lot on what in the industry is called dMRV, digitally measuring, reporting and verifying carbon on natural ecosystems, and using those tools to bring more transparency and accuracy and rigor to the diligence of carbon projects. And as everybody knows in this market, in the first generation of carbon projects, unfortunately, there were a lot of shortcomings. In some cases, the first generation of players in the market didn't have the tools to ensure quality. In other cases, there were just bad behavior by some players. And it's critical that in this new generation of carbon markets, we ensure quality, we ensure that the claims that the companies are going to make are robust. So we've been investing a lot in these technologies, and we made some very important breakthroughs on dMRV. Today we have a model that allows us to predict how much carbon is stored on forest. That model, we call it canopy height mapping, because what we really measure or predict is how high the trees are, and that is one of the best proxies for carbon content on forest. And we built that model by combining satellite data with LiDAR data and with ground truth data that is collected by scientists on the ground measuring trees by trees. But then we can apply that model to large ecosystems and be able to predict the carbon content of existing forest. But we can also look at the historical evolution of this forest. We can see the historical deforestation or forest growth, and we can predict into the future what is the future carbon content that the forest can have, or what is the risk of deforestation. Similarly, we built a tool that we call dynamic control-based area baseline, which allows us to build a baseline of business as usual that is algorithmic, that is very relevant to the area of interest, and that basically improves the accuracy of the calculations of carbon content. Now, I'm saying all that because I think that was one of the reasons why the Symbiosis Coalition chose Pachama to be the technology platform to run the request for proposals for projects. The Symbiosis Coalition is an incredible development. These are some of the largest companies in the world, as you said: Google, Meta, Microsoft, Salesforce, the companies that are leading the AI revolution, and they're investing a lot into data centers. They're going to be increasing their energy consumption, as every technology company, and they care a lot about their climate impact. So they came together, they formed that coalition. They are aspiring to contract over 20 million tons of carbon removal coming from high quality nature-based projects. These projects will include reforestation, agroforestry, and in the future, other type of projects such as mangroves and agriculture and so forth. And they want to really be a lighthouse for the industry. They want to show that this can be done right, that with the right tools, with the right incentives, you can create incredible projects that sequester carbon for the long term while benefiting local communities and enhancing biodiversity. And so that means that they're going to be doing a lot of upfront diligence before investing in these projects. And to do the diligence, they need a platform in which they could receive proposals and that could also empower them with insights and data based on remote sensing data, so that they could do the diligence, that analysis, and ultimately choose which projects to invest, and then track them, monitor them. And we presented a proposal to them, and we won that contract, and we're incredibly excited to work closely with them. They have an incredible team of experts that is going to be running this RFP. The RFP is open right now, and we are expecting a lot of submissions from around the world. The first RFP will be closing by the end of this month, but then there's going to be other RFPs later in the year. And yeah, we're super excited. We think that this is a big, beacon of hope for the market, and we think that it's going to really start a whole new wave of nature-based projects around the world.
Yeah, it is certainly a very exciting development, and congratulations on this partnership. But for someone who's not that tech savvy, I'd like to get a little bit deeper into the dMRV process if possible. So for context, how accurate is your approach compared to other approaches to MRV out there, and what exactly is different about it?
Yeah, so historically, the different methodologies for carbon crediting allowed for different techniques to come up with your carbon accounting, and super high level what you need to determine how many carbon credits a project will produce is what is the baseline of business as usual. What will happen on the project or on the ecosystem or on the land that you're intervening without human intervention. And then what is the additional carbon that is going to be sequestered as a result of your intervention? And so that means you need to look at the entire region that surrounds the project to determine the baseline based on what is the most relevant reference region. And historically, the way that was done, you would basically hire some local scientists who knew local ecology. They will be building some maps based on satellite data or on best available public information, and then they will come up with with an estimation of what is a baseline. Instead, we built an algorithm, an AI model that basically you select a map on a web interface, and then the algorithm goes and selects automatically pixels one by one of the surrounding area and look at the history of those pixels in terms of deforestation or forest growth, and then comes up with a very objective baseline. Now, the difference is manifold. In one side is subjective. So we remove human subjectivity, which removes possibilities of errors and also possibilities of bias or corruption, right? It's an algorithm that comes out with the best possible calculation. Second, it's actually more accurate because we are not selecting reference regions, in large swath. We're actually going super granular, pixel by pixel. That means that each single area is going to be matched very accurately to another area that is relevant. And then finally, it's faster. This type of analysis used to take months, if not years. We can do it in minutes. And it's cheaper because it took a team of scientists and experts to go to the field to, collect data. And now this is just basically running an AI algorithm. And yes, it has some compute cost, but the cost is a fraction. So it's a typical case of technology doing things better, cheaper, faster, which is what technology is good at. And that's just one example. The same applies for carbon stocks, for leakage calculations, for reversal risks, and so forth and so on. So it's a very exciting application of AI. It's something that wasn't possible only a few years ago, and that is possible today because we have more compute, we have better algorithms, we have better infrastructure to run geospatial artificial intelligence. And we think that it's going to change the game. We think that in the future, carbon markets and all markets are going to only exist powered by these technologies. And the previous way of doing things is going to look so primitive.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the explanation. While we're on the topic of partnerships as well, another very recent one that you announced is with carbon registry Isometric. What exactly can you tell us about this partnership? What does it entail?
Yeah, we're very excited about Isometric. It's a new group that came to the market with the idea of focusing solely on carbon removal, but using the latest technologies and moving really fast on innovating on this market. We collaborated with them on the creation of their first reforestation carbon removal methodology. We consider that the methodology is best in class, and it's based on the best available science. And what we're excited about is that it includes the adoption of these dMRV technologies, right? And we think that by adopting these dMRV technologies, it will save time and money for project developers. It will increase the accuracy of the projects, as we were talking before. And our partnership is also related about dMRV. We're going to be working on integrating our data streams into their platform to facilitate the verification and validation of their projects, the monitoring of their projects, and ultimately, the path to issuance of carbon credits with their platform. And this is something that we've been pursuing for a long time. We also have done a pilot with Vera, and we think that all the registries and standards should adopt digital technologies if we are to ensure quality at scale on this market.
Excellent. Thank you. Last question about partnerships. Another major deal that you struck last year was with Shopify for the purchase of carbon credits in the form of a reforestation project in Brazil. And please do correct me if my information is wrong here. But I'm really curious to learn more about this deal, and it would be great if you could share some details about it.
Yeah, that was an amazing deal because it wasn't actually a purchase of carbon credits, but was instead an offtake, a commitment to invest and purchase future credits coming from a project in an early stage. And that is something that we're seeing a lot in the market. As many companies want to focus on removals as opposed to avoided emissions. And there are many projects out there with removal credits. And as we know, reforestation projects take time. You plant a tree today, and it will take about 5 years for the tree to grow to a size in which is starting to sequester meaningful carbon. And the majority of the carbon intake happens between year 5 and year 40, right? So it requires a certain patience. And what was amazing about this deal and many other deals that are happening on that shape is that a major publicly traded technology company commits to buy the future credits of a project, and that makes the project bankable. That makes the project attractive to financiers, and then the project can go and secure the capital to keep expanding, to do the tree planting, to do the monitoring, but to keep enrolling landowners and to keep planting more trees. And that's what we need if this market is to scale, is bankability and trust into the long-term cash flows that these projects can bring. Shopify has been an amazing customer of ours for many years. They really led the way on carbon removal. But there are many other companies. And in fact, what the Symbiosis Coalition is going to be doing is similar types of contracts. And what the industry is seeking is to standardize these offtake contracts so that they don't have to be renegotiated every time, so the industry can have a standard offtake contract that we can all move fast on making deals.
Just to clarify, this specific contract, is it for a certain amount of carbon that will be sequestered at a given point in time? Or is there a number in there somewhere at all?
Yeah, it's definitely. We and the project comes up with the best estimation using these technologies and tools of how much carbon can be sequestered in this tree plantation, and then you commit to deliver those credits, and then the company will pay on delivery of these credits. But they're committed by contract, and that means that now the future cash flow is secure for the project, and the future flow of carbon units is secure for the company, and they can start planning their net zero claims for the future. And then the project can go and finance the activities needed to plant the trees and to sequester carbon. But yes, there are estimations and guarantees.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that and giving us a bit of a behind the scenes there. It's always really interesting to learn about how carbon credit purchase deals are formed. But moving on from those, I also wanted to get your take on some bigger picture matters, such as what's happening with the VCM at large. As an active market participant, I'd love it if you could also share with us your observations of how the market has changed in the past year. As we all know, it was a difficult one.
Yes, there's a lot going on. There's been a lot going on in our markets and in the wider systems in which our markets exist. And I think that there's been bad news and good news, and things that we still don't know how they're going to fully affect the market. In one hand, there were all these revelations of, as I said, shortcomings on the first generation of the market. Instances in which projects, maybe with good intentions, but with poor tools, misrepresented the actual benefit of a project. And then other instances of wrongdoing, instances in which some players took advantage of the methodologies to get more credits than they should have. And that was covered by a lot of media outlets. I think in many cases it was exaggerated, the extent of these shortcomings. But the point is that these revelations came out and it diminished the trust of the whole voluntary carbon markets and even compliance markets. But now the good news is that all that triggered a big wave of innovation and dedicated work to increase integrity and quality. And we saw the emergence of entities such as the ICVCM and the VCMI. We saw the emergence of new registries such as Isometric. We saw the development of a lot of dMRV tooling by us and by other players such as Chloris Geospatial and C-Trees and Space Intelligence. We saw the increased scrutiny by scientists and by journalists, and that in a very rapid way increase the quality and the accountability of the market. But still the trust needs to be regained. As they say, it takes years to earn trust, and it takes a minute to lose that trust. So the market has to regain the trust from the whole world. And this is something that we have been talking about since the beginning of Pachama. We were talking about the issues in the market, and we were talking about the need for improvement of methodologies and techniques. But all that came to be a center moment in the last 2 years. Now, in the other side, the other thing that happened is that the financial and economic environment changed, right? Interest rates went up. That made it more difficult to finance projects. Companies became more austere, and we saw how a lot of large companies did big layoffs in the last 2 years. And of course, when you're in a moment of cutting costs and laying off your employees, sustainability initiatives get put in the backseat. And we saw a lot of corporations slowing down investments in sustainability and net zero, and the things that could be delayed got delayed. And that was unfortunate because, of course, there's a lot of projects in the VCM that depend on sustainability investments by corporations. What we hear from most companies is that this was a temporary slowdown on investment sustainabilities, but they're going to come back decidedly on a new environment of more financial clarity. And then finally, there was a lot of political uncertainty. Last year was a year of elections, of course, in the US, but around the world. And when you have elections, things get heated. A lot of actors take advantage of the heat of the political environment to throw rocks at things such as ESG. And you had a faction accusing corporations of greenwashing, and another faction accusing corporations of ESG abuses, and I think that led to a lot of uncertainty and slowdown of investments. Now, I think that the other good news that we saw is the UN COP developments continue to be positive. Countries continue to commit to the Paris Agreement, and we saw Article 6 coming into fruition in the last COP, and that is a really good news for harmonization of carbon markets. We saw similarly other frameworks that companies are agreeing on in terms of methodologies and claims. So I think that in general, the last year and the last 2 years have been full of uncertainties and turbulences. I think that the worst has passed, and there are some kernels of good news and kernels of hopes on all that happened. And I think that, frankly, we had seen a lot of tourists come into carbon markets and climate tech industry, and we saw already some of the tourists leave. And the true missionaries are still here. In fact, I think that this is the moment for true action. When too many people come into a market because it's hot, because it's trendy, you get too much noise, you get a lot of fake action. But now with the waters more calm, we're going to see true action. We're going to see, the companies that care, the project developers that care, and the market players that care doing things right and building a strong foundation for a new wave of growth for carbon markets.
Yeah, so with all of that said, looking forward, how do you see the VCM developing in 2025?
Yes, I think that this year we're going to see a new slow growth is my prediction. Meaning it's not that things are going to explode in growth like before, but I think that we're going to see the beginning of a new wave of investments. It's going to take a different shape. Maybe it's not going to be retirements of legacy avoided emissions credits, but it's going to be more offtake agreements and upfront investments into new projects. Meaning that's going to be more difficult to see publicly, because many of these contracts are going to be private contracts. It's not going to be public retirements of credits, but we're going to see a new growth. It's going to be a slow beginning of a new wave that I expect is going to start to accelerate more in 26 and 27. But I think that there are many reasons to be excited. Net zero is not going away. Climate change, unfortunately, is not going away. There's a lot to do to ensure that we are in a path to a safe climate. And in fact, what we saw in previous moments where governments abandon focus on climate is that leads to more corporate action, more consumer pressure. And I think that's what we're going to see, during the next few years. So in short, I'm actually excited about what 2025 has for carbon markets, for net zero, and for corporate sustainability in general.
And since you mentioned Article 6, there being an agreement finally reached on it at COP29 last year, realistically, how do you see it impacting carbon markets?
I think that it's going to lead to more harmonization between the different carbon markets, the voluntary market and the country-to-country market of IDMOS. I think it's going to lead, it leads to a stronger validation that carbon markets are here to stay. I think it might lead to more demand and an increasing price of projects that are compliant with Article 6, because now you're going to have countries seeking these credits, and you're going to have corporations seeking these credits. And if these credits are part of the harmonization of these two markets, these credits are going to rise in price. So in short, I think that it's a big validation of the market, and it's going to take work, but getting the UN involved in carbon markets is a good thing. And I think that it's going to lead to a lot more innovation and investments.
Brilliant. Let's hope that this year will indeed be positive for the VCM and for climate action in general. With that, I do have one final question reserved for you, and it is regarding Pachama's upcoming plans and future announcements. Please let us know what you guys have lined up for the next weeks, months, and what news we can look forward to from Pachama.
Yeah, in general, what I shared with our community recently in December is that Pachama is moving in the direction of offering our dMRV tools to source and diligence and track projects to more companies and in new ways. Historically, Pachama was somehow an intermediary between projects and companies, but many times we got asked by companies, hey, can we use your tools just to source projects, just to diligence projects, just to monitor projects that we already have connections with? And now we are actually offering those solutions to corporations. In fact, the partnership with Symbiosis is an example of that. We're offering them our platform to run an RFP. This is a platform that we built that is specifically designed to receive submissions of carbon projects of all types. And we're going to be offering that platform to other companies that want to run RFPs or simply procure carbon and sustainability projects. And similarly, we are going to be offering the ability to diligence projects and to verify and evaluate the quality of projects with our dMRV tools, whether those projects are intermediated by Pachama or not. And then finally, we're going to help companies monitor and track those projects. So in short, we're moving from in the past having taken the position of being an intermediary or a broker or a partner to projects to being more a platform that empowers companies to source, diligence, track, and invest confidently into nature-based carbon projects. When we have more specific announcements about products and offerings, definitely we're going to reach out to you guys. But I'm very excited about this new direction. And we think that with these new offerings, we're going to be able to help unlock more capital to amazing projects around the world.
Lovely. Definitely looking forward to it. Diego, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a wonderful experience to have you and to learn about all the groundbreaking work that you and the team at Pachama are doing. Wishing you a very fruitful 2025.
Thank you so much, Violette. And let's stay in touch. Keep up the good work.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Carbonsations podcast and would like to hear more conversations like this, please be sure to subscribe. We really appreciate the support.